at the end of the day, when I do go to sleep, I know that I've done the best I could. I consider myself a good person. And I think it's just the universe, the universal laws of karma and, putting out good energy, doing good. We're not ripping anybody off. We're not doing anything illegal or anything like that. So I think at the end of the day, the universe has laws built into it where they provide value to people that are providing value.
You work hard in your business. On the Profit by Design podcast, we ask the big question: what has your business done for you lately? Hi, I'm Dr. Sabrina Starling, the business psychologist, the author of How to Hire the Best, and your co-host on the Profit by Design podcast. Weekly, my co-host, Mike Bruno, and I bring you tips, tools, and strategies from our own experiences and from the experiences of our guests, who are entrepreneurial thought leaders and real-life entrepreneurs, all to support you in making intentionally profitable and sustainable business decisions to live the lifestyle you desire. At Tap the Potential, we know that you want to be freed from the constant demands of your business. In order to do that, you need a business that supports your life. The problem is you have a cash-sucking business taking over your life, leaving you frustrated and discouraged. We believe work supports life, not the other way around. We understand you're paying a team and you're still having to do it all. There should be accountability. It shouldn't be this hard, which is why through our proprietary coaching system, we help thousands of business owners just like you have more time for what's important to them and grow profit by 300 to 800%. Here's how we do it. First, take our assessment at tapthepotential.com/assessment. Next, meet with our success team lead to debrief your results. Then, join our Better Business, Better Life program. By the end of your first year with us, you will have more time for what matters to you and more money in your bank account than you've ever had before. So take our assessment at tapthepotential.com/assessment so you can stop working so hard for so little return. Take your life back. Profit Designers, today we're privileged to have Kieran Lynch rejoining us. Kieran was on the podcast about a year ago in episode 33, and we got to talk with him about the power of culture and how that is helping him recruit as an electrical contractor in an industry where he was facing a lot of challenges around recruiting. In talking with Kieran in this episode, it is striking to me how different his circumstances are currently. And he's going to share with us a very big challenge and trying circumstance that he and his business weathered prior to coronavirus. They got through that and then have been hit with coronavirus. In today's episode, you're going to hear his strategic thinking and his resiliency. This is an inspiration. I really hope that you listen to this and you take encouragement, inspiration, and strategy from this for yourself. Profit Designers, at Tap the Potential, we are on a mission right now to be a positive force in social media during trying times for all of us entrepreneurs. In that regard, I would love it if you could help us out. We really want to get behind any of you who are doing good things in your communities, showing up and leading with love. If you are doing something to keep your team together during this time and you're sharing it in social media, or you come across another entrepreneur who is being a gift from their gift in some way that you notice, please use the hashtags #LeadWithLove and be a gift. Our team at Tap the Potential is on the lookout in social media for those hashtags, and we will be reposting those social media posts from the Tap the Potential social media. Let's all lead with love, be a gift, and shine bright during these trying times.
So, Kieran, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast for a second time. We really appreciate it. As you know, I'm a big fan of your business acumen and, your entrepreneurialism and everything that you do. one of the things that I wanted to dig into a little bit is in the past 6 or 7 months or so, I know that your business has been faced with a couple challenges financially. One of your larger customers ran into some financial trouble and put you guys in a compromised position. And then everything that's going on with COVID. So if you can maybe dig into the first part of it. So, how you adapted and overcame those challenges financially, but then in such a short period of time, now having this other, coronavirus thing going on, how it's impacted your business and what you've done to kind of, position yourself to get out of it.
Thank you for having me on. Thank you for the kind words. I could say the same about yourself. So you said larger financial crisis, or one of the larger clients that we were working with. It was actually the largest client at the time. So last year we were having our best year ever. And then basically overnight it turned to our worst year ever. And that's because our largest client at the time, someone we were doing about 80% of our business with, went bankrupt. And it was, there were some rumblings the weeks following up to it. They were such a big company and I was pretty well connected, still am well connected with the owners and many of the employees. That didn't seem valid, but then just one day some stuff hit the fan and we were in a pretty bad situation. So we had multiple jobs with this client. We were kind of their go-to electrician. And like I said, there was some writing on the wall, but from all the conversations I was having with everyone, it wasn't anything to worry about. And then the date happened, they filed for bankruptcy, and then all chaos broke loose. In northern New Jersey, where we are, there's a huge ripple effect around the whole industry. So if I went back and had to write a list of how I would handle it next time, I would have 5 steps. And the first step would be relax. So when this news broke, I freaked out. I didn't know what to do. Myself, I'm a doer, just like many entrepreneurs. So I felt like I had to be doing something. And there was really nothing to do. I was calling everyone I could. I was, do we have to move money? Do we start suing people? Luckily, I'm in business with my father, who's very calm. And he was the one that was really bringing me down and keeping my feet on the ground and saying, let's just relax. I think there's much to do. So step 1 would definitely be relax. Step 2 would be analyze and ask around. So I, like I said, got on the phone with everyone I could. And, whether it's other subs, attorneys, accountants, taking all their advice with a grain of salt, just because not everyone knows the best thing to do unless they've been through it. I talked to some other subs. This is going to blow through and be over in a week and we won't have to worry about it. And then there was other subs that were, firing all their employees and we're really freaking out about the whole situation. I don't listen to the butcher on how to bake bread. So everyone I was talking to, I was taking it with a grain of salt. Step 3 would be create multiple plans. A worst case, what happens if we don't get another penny from these guys, if there's no settlement, if we have to get off all the jobs and we never get back to work on those jobs. And then a best case scenario where this does blow over in a couple weeks, we get back to work, cash flows go back to normal. And then kind of like a middle of the ground scenario where some of the jobs come back, you make some of the money back and go from there. And that is where we ended up being. Step 4 would be forget the past, learn from it and move forward. So the first couple of weeks I was really down on myself, looking introspectively and saying, how did I not see this? How did I not prepare for this? Luckily, we were a little scared about 8 months prior to that because we thought that we were too heavily invested in this one company. So I had the slight intuition to start branching out. And that's ultimately what saved the company, is that we did have these other relationships and we weren't exclusively working with this one contractor. So that was some foresight that I had, luckily saved the company. And then just move forward because there's really nothing you could do about it. There's no point in being mad at people or mad at yourself. The past is in the past. And then step 5 is understand and recognize that this made you stronger. And it's really a blessing in disguise. So the silver lining that I see from this is that all the contacts and all the employees that we knew at this company, since they were our biggest client, we still had those relationships. And since the company's, no longer there, all these employees still have to work somewhere. So they all went to different construction companies and we had the good relationship with them and they're bringing us with them. They're bringing us with them now. So we're just naturally diversifying. So that's where I say there's a bit of a silver lining there where, we could look back in 10 years and think that this might be one of the best things that ever happened to us because we'll have 20 different clients, and if one of them did go under, file for bankruptcy, there's really wouldn't be that much of a problem.
Wow, Kieran, your resiliency in all of this is amazing. And there's so much in what you said, but the part that just stands out to me is that a company is an entity It's a legal entity that exists on paper, right? What's lasting are the relationships. And that's what saved you and is saving you guys and helping you to be stronger. It's those relationships that you built over time and had tended to and nurtured. And I love what you're saying about diversifying and how that is going to make you stronger. I got so scared when you said our largest client responsible for 80% of our revenue gone. Like my stomach just clenched up. And, I know as someone who works with a lot of business owners to be very strategic in their business, we focus on the 80-20 principle. And we look at the 20% of clients that are responsible for 80% of the revenue. It is not uncommon for us to be analyzing a business and find one or two clients that are responsible for that 80% of revenue. And I hope everyone who is in that situation, if you're listening and you're hearing Kieran talk about this, pay attention. It is so precarious to have so many eggs in one basket.
Yeah, that's really true. And one thing I wanted to point out too, I know Kieran and his father pretty well, and they're both really genuinely awesome guys. And I know a lot of their employees as well, and they're a good group of guys as well. So, Kieran, when you were going through this, what kind of challenges did you have with some of your key employees, and how did you help push them through it while all this was going on?
Yeah, so it happened, ironically enough, on September 11th, which is probably the crappiest date it could have happened on just because of all the history. So we stayed quiet. We didn't want to make any brash decisions and reach out to our guys right away and create this sense of panic. We kind of kept that us because we definitely were panicking. So we waited about a week until the dust settled somewhat. And then we pulled all our guys together, told them what was happening, told them why they're no longer on these sites. Luckily, there was a big job, not with this company. We had everybody on for about a month after, which really saved us. So, it was good because the whole company was on that site, so we could go have meetings with them, check in with them. But we did tell them the reality of the situation, let them know what was going on, reassure them that we were doing everything we could. We did do those projections before we talked to them. So the worst case scenario projection, we didn't have to do any layoffs for about 2 months. And we told them that. And within those 2 months, I hit the pavement as hard as I could. And we were able to go through this whole situation without doing any layoffs. So we were honest with them. We've had an open door policy, and we always have. So any questions that they had, whether they didn't want to ask in front of the group, they would ask us. And they were actually more upset than I thought they would be. Kind of like, how could these people do this to you? I never had a good feeling about them. So maybe they were on the front lines and kind of saw stuff before we could. But yeah, it was just honesty. We kept we tried to keep culture as a priority. We still had our quarterly offsites where all the guys would get together. I think it was a learning experience for them too, to see that, even though being an owner can seem very glamorous, there's definitely times where your biggest client goes bankrupt and you're afraid you're going to lose your house, which is something they never really have to worry about.
Yeah. When you were on the podcast previously, we talked to you at length about your great culture that you've built and how you have been successful in recruiting in the construction industry, electricians, contractors. That's a very tough role to recruit for. Probably until recently, there may be more A players out there. But what really impressed me is the culture that you've built and how pivotal that's been in your company. And so I just want to clarify and underline something. You shared with them the worst case scenario that you'd be facing layoffs in 2 months if things did not pick up. So that's a big question that we get from business owners, especially with coronavirus, projecting out worst case scenarios. Do I tell my team that we may be looking at layoffs if things don't get better? It's clear that there were pros because your team had a deeper appreciation for what you go through as the business owner and what you were experiencing. That authenticity and transparency was there. And clearly they rallied. They felt protective of you. Were there any cons to telling them that you saw? or experienced?
I'd say maybe in the younger guys, but our older, more experienced guys that have been with us for a little longer, I think really settled the younger guys' nerves. Whereas the guys that have been with us for longer, when I say, 2 months out, we might be looking at cuts, but I'm going to do everything that I can, that doesn't happen. The young guys look at that and say, oh crap, I'm going to be out of a job in 2 months. The guys that have been with me, they know us, they know me. They're going to say, Kieran has 2 months to work on this. I think we're fine. So the older guys were definitely coaching the younger guys and easing their potential hardships by reassuring them that, I've known Kieran and his father, Mike, for X amount of years. When he says he's going to do something, he's going to do it.
And you showed them that you did, right? So now they have a greater degree of confidence in you. The whole team has a greater degree of confidence in you and your leadership. The team probably feels more confident about themselves and how they've pulled together. I just imagine you've built tremendous loyalty through this.
Yes, we have an extremely low turnover rate industry that turnover rates are pretty high.
That's amazing.
Did any employee do something or say something that pissed you off or that you were surprised by?
No.
So everything's perfect. Kieran's perfect world.
No. And I'm trying to think back. This was back in the fall. Like I said, they were animated during that first meeting and kind of pissed off, not at us, but more at the situation. So, I guess they didn't handle that perfectly, but I understand that after getting the news that they heard how they could be upset. But I think they shook that off pretty quickly. And it's not like it went in and it was like a lagging thing for months to come where they were still pissed off at the situation. And that was mainly because they saw that we weren't pissed off at the situation. It was just the reality of it, and we were dealing with it and chugging along.
So, Mike, your question is a good one. And psychologically, I think there's a phenomenon at work here for us to be mindful of. So when there is an external threat to the team, typically the team will pull together and attack the threat. So, this bad company that went out of business, that went bankrupt, and we have to come together around that. So you saw some bad behavior, but it was more in the direction of that force outside of us. And the distinction is if they would have seen Kieran as the one who made a bad decision, or as somebody else in a leadership role who made a series of bad decisions, and that's why the company is struggling, that I think is typically where you see those employees coming out and attacking the leadership in the company and that bad behavior. So this actually was a very good setup. And I think there's a lot of parallels to what business owners are experiencing with coronavirus, because we have this external threat outside of our businesses that we're all having to pull together around. And it's really an opportunity to pull teams together to get creative and try to find ways through this.
Add on to that, during that meeting, I did take ownership of that. It was partially my fault for not seeing it sooner. I'm not sure if you guys read the book Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink, but the premise of it is if anything bad happens, it's on you. If the good happen, it's because of them. So me and my father try to practice that. So since that was a bad situation, I did take some of the blame and say, I should have seen it sooner, and I'm sorry I didn't, but this is the reality of the situation. And I am sorry.
Well, and when you do that, it reduces the likelihood that team members are going to come after you for bad decisions. If you take ownership of it, you've called it out first, and it doesn't leave that space for someone else on the team to say, hey, what about Kieran and what about his role in this? I just want to say to you, in terms of your decision-making and your strategy coming into this and through it, you didn't do anything differently than most entrepreneurs would do, right? Now you have a school of hard knocks lesson, and going forward, you'll do it differently. I would venture 90% of us would have been in the same boat.
True. So now with coronavirus and the pandemic and, partial shutdown of non-essential, or I guess we should say shutdown of non-essential construction projects in New Jersey, you've been dealt with a couple decent blows in, the last, whatever it is, 6-7 months. So has your business been affected by coronavirus? And what are you doing, to adapt to that? What have you been saying to your team, and how are you guys moving forward in a positive way?
Yeah, so the coronavirus is perfect timing because it was really right when we were starting to get back on our feet from the bankruptcy from a cash standpoint.
Oh.
And then this broke. So, I'm confident we're going to make it through this. And then, once we get past this 12-month period, I think we're going to be stronger than ever. It's just a matter of navigating through it. Unfortunately, with the virus, we did have to make cuts. Whereas this is a little more different. When our biggest client went bankrupt, we were able to go and find other work because other work was there. Whereas this, the whole state shut down. So unless there's an essential project, which luckily we're still on a couple, there's not even work there. I mean, I could go out and build a pipeline, which I'm doing, but there's no men on the ground. There's no boots on the ground for these jobs for our guys to even go to. So unfortunately, we did have to make cuts, and we were transparent with the people that we cut about the reality of the situation. And we have every intention, and we told each and every one of these guys that we have every intention of bringing them back. It's just a matter of when, and there's so much what if going forward. Luckily, we are on a hospital job, which is obviously considered essential. So something that we're doing now to kind of help going forward is leveraging existing clients and partners, just trying to reach out to them, have conversations with them. Something someone could do is provide ideas to the clients on how they could pivot and how they could move forward and kind of help them brainstorm together rather than just going and asking them for more work, providing value to them. There's a couple other things we could do. I know a guy who has a painting company, and obviously you can't go in and paint houses now. So he's offering clients 25% off if they prepay. And then once all this blows through, he'll go in, and it's just a creative way to build flow during a time when, he's sitting home and literally can't do anything.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And what you're talking about in terms of reaching out to potential clients and talking to them about what are your needs and how can we support you, and let's brainstorm together. I imagine that has been really good for you to get your wheels turning too about possibilities that you guys can be doing. I love the idea of the 25% off for prepaying. I think that's a great thing to be doing. And the other kind of thought that just started formulating in my head is I wonder about going forward for all of us to be paying attention in our client mix, making sure that we have essential projects. Like for you guys, a certain percentage of your revenue, I wonder about making sure that there are essential projects in there.
Yes. So one of the things we did is really sit back and think of the consumer going forward, because it's going to be different. Just from, you think about next time you go to a restaurant, there's going to be people wearing masks. You're not going to be closer to people. So just going forward, the whole mindset of the world is going to change. So you just have to kind of think behaviorally how people are going to think, and then also think where the money is going to be flowing. So we think the money is going to be flowing into the medical sector because everyone's going to be making their hospitals bigger, assisted living facilities. People aren't going to be sharing HVAC because they don't want the virus or any future viruses to interact with different people in separate rooms. So we're trying to reposition and pivot our marketing to reflect that, and then reaching out to the people that might help us get to the person that we need to be in front of, the director of the hospital or the director of construction for the hospital, people like that, so that we could start those relationships and try to get in those sectors that we don't think are going to be affected by this or any future viruses.
Yeah, that is a really good strategy. And the other thing that you said that kind of gave me pause is the thought of just acknowledging this year, this 12-month period is not going to be what any of us had projected or planned for. And we just need to own that and get through it, and then position for the next year and look at how can we come back and grow strong. That 12-month perspective, I really appreciate that.
And that was also a great time for the first time in a while, I have time to do things. So it's a great time. A couple podcasts ago, I think you had mentioned that you can compete on price, quality, or convenience. So unfortunately for us, 90% of the stuff that we work on comes down to price. But there's a section of price that hits the bottom line where you could control, which is the costs. So now is a great time to go in, see where your costs are too high. Like we recently just changed our accountant because we looked back, saw the books, and saw that we were paying our accountant way too much money. And we were able to get a new accountant, a smaller firm, and save 75%. Just by looking at the books.
Good for you.
Because when you're in the day of it and everything's moving so fast, the last thing you have is time to look and say, are we paying the accountant too much? You don't have that time. You just send the check and send it to them. But when you go back and see how many checks you sent that guy over the past 12 months, it's a bit of an eye opener. And if you do that kind of with every expense line item, you'll see that there's a bunch of fluff that you could cut. And then on top of looking at your costs is also just going into the processes of the business and documenting them. Again, it's stuff that on the day-to-day when you're running at 100% efficiency, you don't really have time to go into the processes and write them down. And this is the way we should be doing things. But now that everyone has time, it's a great time to do it. And then on my last point on the time portion of it is everyone has time. It's not just, I mean, maybe not nurses and doctors, but from my point of view, potential clients, everyone's working from home and maybe have a couple video calls a day. So making that call to the potential client or checking in with the existing client, you have time for it, and they should have time for you as well.
Yes. I mean, this is an amazing time to be doing all that work on the business, analyzing costs. I want to share something too that we did with one of our clients this week in our Better Business, Better Life program. We had taken them through the top client assessment in pumpkin planning, and they had identified top clients by revenue, and we were able to go in, ask them to start looking at margin on the different projects. And so that deeper level analysis, especially Kieran, as you're competing on price, if you're analyzing which types of projects have more margin and then being strategic about how do we get more of those projects and what will that look like in the future?
That's a good point. One thing I wanted to ask is on I think our last podcast, we talked about recruiting. What's your viewpoint on the ability to maybe get some A players that are hiding out at some other firms that are now maybe looking for opportunities? Or what do you think the ability to find really quality workers is going to be as we start to get out of this?
Yeah, I think the pendulum's definitely swung back into the owner's favor, whereas last time we talked was about a year ago. And you couldn't find anyone because, the economy was booming. Everyone that was good was working and for the most part happy. But because of all this, like I said, the pendulum came back in the owner's way, which is, again, kind of a silver lining. So that when all this clears up, there'll definitely be some A players out there that we should be able to get our hands on, no problem. And we've slowly started to do it. It's hard to do when, you don't actually have the jobs to put them on. So we don't want to, give them a sense of false hope. So we've slowly been putting feelers out there, but, we don't technically have anyone lined up to start when this ever blows through.
So just to piggyback on what you're saying, How to Hire the Best in the Contractors Edition, when it came out last fall, everyone was like, oh my gosh, there's such a challenge of hiring in the construction industry. I'm so glad you've written this book. So it addressed a need back then, and the content that is in there also talks about positioning yourself to bring on those A players and building those relationships, because circling back to relationships, it's about the long-term relationships that we have that will see us through. So even if you're not in a position to hire right now, identifying your list of people that, when we're picking back up, these are the top 5 that I'm going to call and see if they're ready to come to work. Having that ready to go and nurturing those relationships, looking through the lens of who in your world is a good fit with your culture, who in your world have you encountered who may have not been employed by you, but you may have seen them on other jobs, they may have been since laid off, that you would consider to be A players, and just keeping that kind of database handy and nurturing those relationships, I think will serve well going forward.
And then, our guys, I think I said this last time, our guys are our best recruiters too. So I think keeping culture on top of mind and how you treat your current employees can never be a bad thing. And when our guys are talking to other people and they could say, how did Lynch go through, how did they deal with the virus? And our guys could vouch for us and say all these good things, hopefully, I think it would speak volumes and just naturally recruit all the best people to come our way.
Absolutely. Mike, are there any other questions that you wanted to get to with Kieran?
One last thing I wanted to talk about was just your viewpoint on the importance of maintaining a good mindset. I know you to be a very, level-headed, good mindset person, but maybe if you can talk about some of the importance of that and some of the things that you've done to just maintain a positive mindset going through all this stuff.
For me, it always comes down to gratitude. If you just kind of take a 30,000 foot view of your life and where you are, you could always find ways of where it could be worse. No matter how bad it is, it could always be worse. So gratitude for me is huge. I have my health, I have my family, And the whole bankruptcy thing, I think, made me even more resilient and opened my eyes to this. When I was looking at the projections and some of the projections, if I didn't find that work in the next 2 months, it'd be ourselves going bankrupt. As daunting as it sounds, it really wasn't that bad because I was able to look at my wife and my family and my friends and my support system and know that they would still be there. And, we just think about, we live in the greatest country in the world with all the opportunities you could ever imagine. So if that was the case if we went out of business, I don't know, I guess there was just a sense of calm within myself that I'd be able to figure something else out. And I was thinking about this the other day. I think I'm not sure why they do this, but entrepreneurs and business owners can't accept unemployment, unemployment insurance and unemployment benefits. And I think the reason they do that, I haven't looked into this, but I think the reason they do that is because it's really on us as entrepreneurs to figure out the next steps and what to do next. Whereas if I was able to lay myself off and collect an unemployment check, there wouldn't be much initiative to move forward. But the fact that I can't do that, I think that's the government's way of saying, this is on you to figure out. And I'm up for that challenge.
I love how you're accepting ownership of that. And I know for myself, being an entrepreneur now for about 15 or 16 years, there was a point waking up in the middle of the night worrying about driving my family into bankruptcy. And it was when I realized, I've been an entrepreneur longer than I've been an employee, and things get better every year. There's only been 2 years in my business history where I've taken a step back, and understanding for myself that I have a track record of pulling through lots of different complicating scenarios. And so I hear you expressing that too. It's a confidence in ourselves that we can find a way through this. And it's not that we're going to do it in a silo. All of that networking and relationship building and those conversations that you're having, what we're doing here on the podcast, sharing the strategy and getting you to share your story of your resiliency and what you've overcome will give other entrepreneurs ideas for themselves. And I really believe we have to do this together as entrepreneurs. And I agree with you. It's on us to create jobs going forward for the rest of those people out there.
And I don't want to make this sound like I'm patting myself on the back too much, or to sound too woo-woo. But at the end of the day, when I do go to sleep, I know that I've done the best I could. I consider myself a good person. And I think it's just the universe, the universal laws of karma and, putting out good energy, doing good. We're not ripping anybody off. We're not doing anything illegal or anything like that. So I think at the end of the day, the universe has laws built into it where they provide value to people that are providing value.
Yes, being a gift. When we show up and be a gift, I know for myself, I receive it back in abundance.
Yeah, it's so true. And I couldn't say it better than the both of you just said it. So Kieran, thank you again for all your time and sharing your experiences. And I'm sure it's going to be very helpful to a lot of people. Thanks.
Cool. Thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you for being with us, Kieran.
Anytime.
If you're like most business owners, you have a cash-sucking business that's taking over your life. After the first year in our Better Business, Better Life program at Tap the Potential, you'll have more time for what matters to you and more money in your bank account than you've ever had. Get started. Take our assessment at tapthepotential.com/assessment. Thank you for spending time with us today. Join our conversation in the Profit by Design podcast Facebook group. Share your thoughts on today's episode, ask us questions, and let us know what you want to hear about next. Visit our website at profitbydesignpodcast.com to access resources from our sponsors and tools we've created for you. Subscribe to the show on whatever platform you're listening to right now. There's a subscribe button right there. Go ahead and hit it so that you always get a notification when we release a new episode. And finally, share our podcast with a friend if you know a friend who would enjoy it. Thanks again for listening. This is real life business. Keep your chin up, keep moving forward. You got this.